lecture, we are going to go through number 1, the anatomy of the skeletal system, number 2, the physiology of the skeletal system, and 3, the clinical importance. So let's start with the anatomy of the skeletal system. The adult human skeleton is made up of about 206 bones. These bones vary in size and shape, but they all serve different important functions. So we can say the skeleton is divided into two main parts, the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. Now let's look at each one of them. The axial skeleton forms the axial axis of the body. It includes 80 bones grouped as the skull, the vertebral body, and the thoracic cage. The skull protects the brain and houses sensory organs. It consists of the cranial bones like the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, the occipital, the sphenoid, and the ethmoid bones, and also the facial bones like the maxilla, the mandible, zygomatic, and nasal bones. Then the vertebral column, on the other hand, composes of 33 vertebrae, but some of them fuse to give 26 in adults. So this includes the 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacrum which are fused, and 4 coccygeals which are also fused. So the vertebral column protects the spinal cord and supports the neck and the trunk. Then next is the thoracic cage. It consists of the ribs which are 12 pairs and the sternum. It protects the heart and the lungs and provides attachments for respiratory muscles. So the exoskeleton's job is mainly to protect and to support. Now this takes us to number 2, the appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton includes 126 bones. These are bones of the limbs and the girdles that attach them to the axial skeleton. Examples include the pectoral girdle, which are made up of the clavicle, which is the collarbone, and the scapula, which is the shoulder bone. It attaches the arm to the trunk. Next is the upper limbs, which includes the humerus, which is the arm bone, the radius and the ulna, which are the bones of the forearms, the carpal bones, which are the wrist bones, the metacarpals, which are the hand bones, and then the phalanges, which are the finger bones. All these bones belongs to the upper limbs. And then the pelvic girdle, which is formed by 2 hip bones, the ilium, the ischium, and the pubic, all fused together, that connects the lower limb to the axial skeleton. And then finally the lower limb, which include the femur, which is the thigh bone and the longest bone in the body. Now this can be an examination question. Just remember that the femur is the longest bone of the body. And then in the lower limb you also see the tibia and the fibula, which is the long leg, and then the tarsals, which are the ankle bones, the metatarsals, which are the foot bones, and then the phalanges, which are the toe bones. So we can basically say the appendicular skeleton's main function is movement and locomotion. Now let's talk about the classification of bones. Bones can be classified by their shape. We have the long bones, the short bones, the flat bones, the irregular bones, and the sesamoid bones. An example of the long bones are the femur and the humerus. I'm going to tag a video about classification of bones above. So we have the short bones, which are the carpals and the tarsals. We also have the flat bones, which are the skull and the sternum. We also have the irregular bones, which are the vertebrae, and then for the sesamoid bones are the patella, which is the bone found on the kneecap. Now let's talk about the microscopic anatomy of the bone. On microscope level, the bone is a dynamic living tissue. It has we have the compact bone and the spongy bone. The compact bone are dense and strong, and they form the outer layer of bones. It is organized into structural units called osteons. And then the spongy bones are found inside the bones, especially at the ends of long bones and in flat bones. It contains the trabecula and the bone marrow. Now, the main cells found in bones include the osteoblasts, which are the bone forming cells, the osteocytes, which are the mature bone cells that maintain the bone, and then the osteoclasts, which are the bone reabsorbing cells. So remember this: the osteoblast, the osteocytes, and the osteoclast. Now let's talk about the joints of the bone. Joints are basically where two bones meet and articulate, and joints allows for varying degrees of movement depending on their classification. We have the fibrous joints, the cartilaginous joints, the synovial joints. The fibrous joints are practically immovable. Example is the suture in the skull. Then the cartilaginous joints are slightly movable, and example is the intervertebral discs. And then for the synovial joints, they are basically freely movable joints, and they are the most common type of joints. An example include the hinge joints, which are the elbow and knee joints, the ball and socket joints, which are the hip and shoulder joints, the pivot joints, which are the atlas axis in the neck, and then the gliding joints, which are found in the calf house. So that being said, that is the anatomy of the skeletal system, and let's move over to the physiology of the skeletal system. So the skeletal system has several important and physiological functions. Number one is support. The skeleton provides rigid framework that supports the body and maintains its shape. Without the bones, we will be like jelly, and the skeleton gives structure to our soft tissues. Number two is protection. Many bones protect vital organs, as we have talked before. When we say the skull protects the brain, the vertebrae protects the spinal cord, the rib cage protects vital organs like the heart and the lungs, then the pelvis protects reproductive organs and part of the digestive tract. Now number three, the third function is movement. So we can basically say the bones act as levers and the joint acts as fulcrum. Now this comes from physics, when we are taught machines and we taught layers and fulcrums. So the muscles attached to the bone bear the tendons, and when they contract, they pull the bone in specific direction, and this causes movement. So an example is when the bicep contracts, they pull the radius upward, flexing the forearm. Number four is mineral storage. The bones act as reservoir for minerals, yes, especially calcium and phosphates. The fifth function is blood cell formation, which is hematopoiesis. So I've talked about hematopoiesis, and the link to that video is going to be in the comment section. Now, inside certain bones is red bone marrow, and this is where red blood cells are produced. This includes the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Major sites for hematopoiesis in adults is flat bones like the sternum, the pelvis, and the ribs. Just go to that video, you're going to see more on hematopoiesis. Now the sixth function rather, is fat storage. So yellow bone marrow found in the medulla cavity of long bones actually store fat in the form of triglycerides, and this serves as an energy reserve. So number 7, which is the final function, is endocrine function. The bone is not just passive, it also acts as an endocrine organ. For example, it secretes the osteoclast. For example, it secretes ostocalcine, a hormone that helps to regulate blood sugar and fat metabolism. So let's move over to the final part of this video, which is the clinical importance of the skeletal system.